Hi, I'm Aubrey Penny with Monument Lab. I'm a fat white woman with dark hair and a messy bun and black statement glasses. And I'm wearing a purple dress and a silver headband with neon sparkles sitting in front of an aggressively millennial gray wall that appears slightly blurred behind me thanks to the powers of Zoom. Before we dive in, just a little bit of housekeeping regarding accessibility this evening. Some of these things won't apply to many of you in light of the Zoom webinar format, but I wanted to go through the full set for everyone's benefit. This session is being recorded and will be available online in the coming weeks following the artist's opportunity to review the workshop. Attendees are welcome to turn their cameras off for privacy or restfulness. It's a Zoom webinar, so you're all set. Later in the program, Cleary and I will give you each the opportunity to opt into or out of the sound making activity with Alexa Dexa by giving you the chance to unmute. You are also welcome to opt in and out accordingly based on what makes you feel comfortable. For those of us on camera this evening, please keep camera stable and turn them off when moving to accommodate participants with chronic dizziness. Engage in ways that are comfortable for you, including taking breaks, eating and drinking, stimming as needed. You're all people with bodies, first and foremost. And again, this video will be available later. So feel free to do what you need to do in the present. Automated captioning will be available throughout the session, as well as automated language interpretation. Please let us know if you need any help to turn this on. Sound will be described in the chat, as we saw from Alexa Dex's wonderful description of their music. Presenters will briefly describe themselves and any visuals used during their presentation. Should you have any additional accessibility needs during the session, please reach out to Cleary on the Monument Lab team. Without further ado, I'm delighted to hand us over to Yolanda Wisher, Monument Lab's Senior Curator, to get us started.
Thank you, Aubrey. Welcome, everyone. I'm Yolanda Wisher, Senior Curator at Monument Lab. I'm a Black woman with asymmetrical natural hair and clear frame glasses in front of a bookcase of some of the world's greatest literature and knickknacks, and an art cart with supplies and prints and a window with white curtains. Welcome to Monument Lab's public workshop series, a resource for artists, storytellers, educators, municipal workers, organizers, and monument changemakers. Offering virtual and in-person opportunities for exploration and exchange around practices of commemoration, the public workshop series will focus on different topics throughout the year. The public workshop series is presented with major support from the Mellon Foundation. Our first workshop in this series took place last April and focused on publics of poetry, where we explored ways that poets are, can be, and can see themselves as monument change makers. We heard from Sasha Stiles, Ryan Mather, and Carolyn Zhang. If you missed it, you can watch it on our YouTube channel. I wanted to also let you know about another exciting Monument Lab program coming up next week. We will be hosting a Declaration House panel called Inherited Generational Traumas on Tuesday, November 19th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. on Zoom. This panel will bring together Indigenous people with roots in Lenape-Hoking from multiple tribal sister nations. The panel will explore how the injustices and committed against their ancestors in the last century affect the everyday lives of local Indigenous people to this day. And we'll also focus on breaking generational curses rooted in colonization and more. Panelists will include Declaration House and Monument Lab creative resident, Ty Dancing Wolf Ellis, and who curated the panel, Trinity Norwood, Keisha DeFries Lawrence, Carl Green, and Dr. Carell Hall. This panel is part of the creative residency program accompanying Declaration House, a public art and history exhibition presented by Monument Lab at Independence National Historical Park in Philadelphia, featuring Sonia Clark's public artwork, The Descendants of Monticello. The Declaration House exhibition closes on December 1st. There's still time for you to see it, and you can see the chat for details about all of these upcoming programs. Tonight's program is going to be just as special and necessary. We have an incredible and inspiring lineup of speakers curated by our very own Aubrey Penny, who I will now formally introduce as our moderator for the evening. Aubrey Penny is a fat, disabled, Memphis-raised, Dallas-based curator, artist, writer, and project manager. Her work addresses power dynamics in art display, confronting the impossibility of neutrality or equity in institutional structures. Her curatorial practice is grounded in the disruption of art institutions' prioritization of well and able bodies through both architectural and digital structure and installation strategy. Her ongoing research focuses on language translation and standardization policies in museum database structure and wall labels. She advocates for artist leadership and the determination of tombstone label contents and production of accessibility materials for their own works. She holds an MFA with a distinction in curating from Goldsmiths College, University of London, and a BA from Haverford College in English and Religion. Aubrey currently serves as our dear Senior Project Manager and Curatorial Associate for Public Art and History Studio Monument Lab. Over to you, Aubrey.
Thank you so much, Yolanda, and welcome everyone. This is Aubrey speaking. I'm so glad you've joined us to think together about how monuments can better anticipate and reflect the bodies of the disabled, the chronically ill, and the neurodivergent. I'm joined tonight by my guests, Johanna Hedva, Finnegan Shannon, and Alexa Dexa. As someone chronically ill, disabled, and neurodivergent, and embedded in the work around public art and memory, I'm grateful for the opportunity to explore how we might reimagine monuments through accessibility tactics. The idea of public, let alone public memory in our monuments, often excludes too many. I've struggled with this for a long time. Often the fact that monuments tend to exist outdoors, in parks, means they are viewed as democratic objects, universally available to all, at least insofar as witnessing them. But to venture into a space of public, and by extension public art, necessitates a number of resources for enjoyment, particularly the time, energy, capacity, transportation, finances, and support, resources that can be more challenging for the disabled, neurodivergent, chronically ill to obtain. And that's presuming that the monuments aren't surrounded by stairs or grass to begin with. And we haven't even touched on the lack of representation of such bodies and minds within the monument sphere. It is my hope that together, from a CRIP perspective, we can move towards a broader, more generous understanding of monuments, one that can better embrace the diversity of our bodies and minds. I can't imagine three better people to begin this process with than our guest speakers this evening. Our first guest is Johanna Hedva, a Korean-American writer, artist, and musician who was raised in Los Angeles by a family of witches and now lives in LA and Berlin. Hedva is the author of essay collection How to Tell When We Will Die on Pain, Disability, and Doom, published September 2024 by Hillman Grad Books. Congratulations, Johanna. They are also the author of the novels Your Love Is Not Good and On Hell, as well as Minerva, The Miscarriage of the Brain, a collection of poems, performances, and essays. Their albums are Black Moon Lilith in Pisces in the fourth house, and The Sun and the Moon. Their work has been shown in Berlin at Gropius Bau, Haus der Kultur in der Welt, Klosterien, and the Institute of Cultural Inquiry, in Los Angeles at Joan, HRLA, and in the Getty Pacific Standard Time and the LA Architecture and Design Museum, the Institute of Contemporary Art in London, Performance Space New York, Seoul Museum of Art, and Gyeongnam Art Museum in South Korea, the 14th Shanghai Biennial, Migros Museum for Gegenwartskunst in Zurich, Modern Art Oxford, Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art Bolzano, the Museum of Contemporary Art on the Moon, and the Transmediale, Unsound, Rewire, and Creepy Teepee festivals. Their writing has appeared in Triple Canopy, Freeze, The White Review, Topical Cream, Spike, Die Zeit, and is anthologized in Whitechapel Documents of Contemporary Art, which I personally highly recommend. Their essay, Sick Woman Theory, published in 2016, has been translated into 11 languages. I admittedly read Johanna's Sick Woman Theory annually as a way to reset my mind and prepare myself for the complications of being a human being in a very complex world. Through their work, I have found edification, encouragement, a profound hope for the complexity of bodies and minds, and a dream for the coalition we can build together. It is an honor and a joy to welcome Johanna Hedva.
Thank you so much for having me, and such a lovely introduction. And I'm really grateful just to be able to share space with you all. I am a Korean American femme person who has black hair and large black glasses. I'm wearing black leather and a black sweater, and I'm in front of a shelf of many books in a friend's house in Brooklyn. I wanted to just briefly hold up the book that Aubrey just mentioned that has Sick Woman Theory in it that was just published 2 months ago, How to Tell When We Will Die on Pain, Disability, and Doom. These are essays it took me 10 years to write, and it just came out in September. I'm shamelessly plugging it. But yeah, feels appropriate to be joining you today to think about these things at this moment in time, also nationally speaking. So what I'm going to show you today is an 8-minute video from a performance that I did in 2020. Yeah. And I think it was probably June of 2020. So really peak COVID lockdown. The performance was kind of an improv ad hoc adaptation of how we were going to do something under COVID restrictions. It's something that I think about a lot, is what COVID changed and what it has not changed. So I wanted to show this today because it felt a bit relevant, continually relevant to be thinking about those things. So the video is me performing one of my songs in a 13th century ruin in the middle of Berlin. The venue is called the Klosterruine, which means the ruins of the cloisters. It's right at Berlin Alexanderplatz, which is one of the biggest city centers in Berlin. It is the city center. And it's a very strange monument because it's the ruins of a 13th century Franciscan church. There are the floor made of bricks is still intact, but I think there are only like 1 3/4 of the walls of this church left standing, and there are no ceilings. It's open air because of that. There's nothing in the windows, it's just bricks. And so the curator came to me kind of right at the beginning of 2020 with the idea of having me do a solo exhibition in this space. And while we were thinking about it, lockdown happened. And so it shifted to be a situation where it was quite possible that no one could come and I would have a show in a ruin that no one could come to, which really excited me. So I thought that that was a fabulous idea to think through things like presence, accessibility, public space, what is required to support people to be in public space safely. And then also how we kind of have these spaces of monuments around our urban environments that have turned into ruins that represent something or signify something that no longer is there but is still there and taking up space. So the show ended up being a sound installation with a live stream website of the sky above the ruin. All of the sound installation was available online. And it essentially dealt with this kind of absence presence conundrum of accessibility. Because one of the things I think about with CRIP bodies, CRIP people, is where are they? And if they're not here, why not? So what I'll play you now, I'm going to share my screen. It's an 8-minute video of me performing this song live. The song is called Wash. You'll see me standing in black, playing an electric guitar in the middle of this ruin. What's very interesting and exciting to me about this specific performance is I played to like no one, except for the camera woman and the curator and the sound engineer. And it was one of the only ways to play like safely during lockdown. There was just a lot of space, emptiness, absence, but there were a lot of people watching the live stream. And that felt really significant to me at the time. So I'll share my screen now. So that's the video, and I'll just end there. And I like to say that I look forward to the discussion that we're all going to have.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Johanna. That was such food for thought. Um, Speaking of, if you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll be doing some Q&A at the end of the session. Finnegan Shannon is an artist experimenting with forms of access. They intervene in ableist structures with humor, earnestness, and rage. Some of their recent work includes Alt Text as Poetry, a collaboration with Bojana Kokyat that explores the expressive potential of image description. Do You Want Us Here or Not? A series of benches and cushions designed for exhibition spaces. And Don't Mind If I Do, a conveyor belt centered exhibition that prioritizes rest and play. They have done projects with Mudam Luxembourg, the Queen's Museum, MoCA Cleveland, the High Line, MMK Frankfurt, MCA Denver, and Nook Gallery. Their work has been supported by a Win Newhouse Award, an I-Beam Fellowship, a Disability Futures Fellowship, and grants from Art Matters Foundation, Canada Council for the Arts, and the Disability Visibility Project. Their work has been written about in Art in America, Bomb Magazine, The Believer, and Out Magazine. They live and work in Brooklyn, New York. Finnegan and I met years ago as part of an ill-fated exhibition I was curating, which was scheduled to open in March 2020, the same week pandemic hit in the United States. Their belief in the power of reimagined, crip-centered forms helped me come to terms with one of the greatest disappointments of my career at the time, and instead see the cancellation as an opportunity to recenter vulnerable bodies and fulfill the work's highest calling. Their work is at the forefront of challenging architectural and institutional norms in public spaces, doing the powerful and necessary work of blurring the lines between our experiences of an artwork and the artwork itself. Please welcome Finnegan Shannon.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like I'm still kind of coming from a different plane of existence after experiencing Johanna Hedva's piece. But my self-description, I have short, home-bleached blonde hair with the roots growing in. I'm a white person. I try to give off a kind of boyish charm. I'm wearing a sweatshirt with a loopy flower design drawn on it, and this isn't on camera, but it's actually a full sweatsuit. And I am also in front of a bookshelf. Yeah, so I think I'll just dive in. I'm going to share my screen. That's me. So I just am going to talk about a couple of projects that came to mind for me when I was thinking about the idea of monuments or the idea of what kind of connection is possible through any sense of the public, of a public. The first one I think is the most direct maybe connection. This project is called Anti-Stairs Club Lounge, and this iteration is from 2019, and it was a response to a huge public monument that was built in New York City called The Vessel by Thomas Heatherwick. And that like building scale artwork. Yeah, well, I guess backing up, I think one of the reasons I felt like I needed to respond to that piece was that we're so often told things can't be accessible because of historic architecture and because of budget. And this was built in a brand new development called Hudson Yards, and it had a $150 million production budget. And I just felt a lot of rage around this and felt like I wanted to respond to it in some way, and had this kind of existing container of a project called Anti-Stairs Club Lounge. And so I wanted to bring that to the Vessel right after it opened in, I think, April 2019. So this is a photo. In the background is the vessel itself. It is the very shiny bronze. It kind of has an interconnected basket-like structure. But it's basically all stairs. It's, I think, 150 or so interconnected stairways. It's sometimes referred to as a 1-mile vertical climb. And to me, the way that I was interested in responding to it or protesting it was just to use public space in ways that I'm interested in, which is to be together, to hang out, to lounge, to have snacks, to be with friends. And so in this photo, there are probably about 20 or so people, though we were eventually up more like 50, who are all lounging together on some green furniture that was available in the space. The vessel is pretty far in the background. And another notable thing is that a lot of people are wearing these bright orange beanies. That was the way that I kind of distinguish who was participating in this gathering. And there are also these newspapers that say Anti-Stairs Club Lounge as you externally as you're reading them, but had an article about the vessel inside. And yeah, the vibe was just kind of people chatting and hanging out and yeah, being upset together. And one of the important parts of this project was that in order to be part of the lounge, in order to be in Anti-Stairs Club Lounge, everyone had to sign a document. So this is a photo of a clipboard with someone signing this statement that says, "As long as I live, I will not go up a single step of the vessel," with space for signature, name, and date. And I think what I was thinking about here is just that, yeah, for me, for a lot of people, I would never go up a single step of the vessel, but for anyone who wanted to be in solidarity with this or wanted to kind of be part of this gathering, there needed to be a refusal of the vessel itself. And this document is still available as a PDF on my website. I also will mail them out to you if anyone is still, the vessel recently reopened. So it's once again, yeah, climbable. And another project that I wanted to share, this one is called "The Only Thing I Like About Stairs Is That They Can Be Used as a Place to Sit in a Pinch," and it's from 2021. And this was a site-specific piece that was made for a very small balcony in a museum. It's a narrow set of 6 steps going up to basically like a 1-person balcony that overlooks the main hall of the museum space. And yeah, I always bristle at spaces that are inaccessible and or I'm kind of noticing them and yeah, was really interested in these kind of yeah, in this space and also thinking about the way that in New York I'm often using steps and stoops as places to sit and rest because there often aren't other options. And so this installation is a set of the lower cushions over the bottom 3 steps that basically make them like less usable as a stairway. They kind of block, and they're squishy, so they're harder to walk up, and more usable as a place to sit. And there's also a grab bar to the side that, at least for me, kind of helps me get up and down from seated, and that matches the hardware in the accessible bathroom of the museum. And then this piece that I wanted to share, I think this is the closest that I've come to being asked to make something that feels like a monument or monument adjacent. It's a piece called "Hello from My Bedside Table." It's from 2021, and I was commissioned by Kunsthal Osnabrück to make a banner for this construction facade. Or basically they had scaffolding over their building and they commissioned me to make a really big banner. And I was actually really intimidated by the commission. I had never made something big before, and a lot of my work, especially at that time was very declarative and very forceful, and something about those images being huge felt really bad to me. And so I ended up looking on my, thinking more about kind of my day-to-day life and looking through my iPhone camera roll to see if there was an image that would work for this banner. So I ended up using a photo of my hand holding a tissue box cover that I had made from a vintage kit that I bought on eBay that sits on my bedside table. And the needlepoint kit makes a tissue box cover that looks like a house. So it has like little shrubs in a garden and windows and a little door and a tiled roof and a chimney. And then the tissue comes out of the chimney like smoke. And I was thinking at the time about, just kind of appreciating everyday funny things in my life, the sort of like friendship that I have with objects, and also, it's kind of small comforts like tissues. And but I also think on some level there's this way that it's just kind of a silly image. It's just a visual. It also kind of operates as a visual pun where it's like we had the house and then we made it tiny to be the tissue box and then we're making it big again. And in a cool kind of crossover for this event, the text at the bottom, caregiver, caretaker, is actually a reference to Johanna Hedva's writing for Get Well Soon, which is a project by Sam Levine and Tiga Brain. That's at the URL getwellsoon.labr.io. And the quote that it references is, "I've always found solace in the fact that the words caregiver and caretaker mean the same thing." And in this image, there's a little bit of ambiguity around whether my hand is kind of giving or taking the tissue box. And I was also thinking about, kind of me taking care of this object that also takes care of me. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about a project that is on the horizon and that I feel really excited about. I think, as has been referenced by other people, this idea that just getting out of the house is not always possible, given the logistical and access and other barriers. And I've become really interested in the fridge as the kind of like temporary exhibition space of the home. And I have an image here of my fridge currently in my house. It's kind of a chaotic mismatch of things. There's a cute photo of my cat. There's some photos of friends and family, cards, notes. I didn't notice this until I took this photo, but 2 menus from Tacos El Bronco, which is a restaurant down the block. But so this project will unfold in 2025, but it will be basically a mail art kit that gets sent out that has materials and instructions for thinking about the surface of the fridge as an exhibition space. And I'm really early in this planning process, but I'm really excited. Mail art is also something that I've been feeling really excited about as a tool for asynchronous participation and also being connected when being connected in person continues to feel unsafe or not possible lots of the time. Oh, I'm looking at my notes, and one thing that I made a note to myself that I forgot to say is that going back to this project, Hello from My Bedside Table, I also wanted to shout out the Nightstand Collective, which is a project by Emma Jones that is this really wonderful collection of disabled people's nightstands. They're sort of like portraits, and that was something that I was thinking about when I made this project also. So that's it for me. Thank you so much. And I'm also really excited to be part of the discussion and conversation.
Thank you so much for that, Finnegan. I'm so excited for your foray into mail art. Um, Very excited to stay in the loop about that. Um, so our third guest of this evening is Alexa Dexa. Alexa Dexa is a queer, non-binary, sick, mad, disabled, toy-kestrel, acoustic composer, performer, technologist, and Crip Grandma Core sound witch, reimagining opera as remote Crip rituals that activate transformative care and disabled joy. Envisioning online performances as living art forms with all the wonder and potential of in-person performances, and even more, Alexa Dexa generates collaborative, accessibility-centered experiences that nurture strong community bonds. Channeling intimacy and interdependence, Alexa Dexa fosters live participatory operas where audiences are active and equal creators, and the outcomes are spectacular surprises. Something we do together, a living conversation and co-creation space where we share ourselves and make magic together for each other. Alexa Dex's work calls us to see the mundane as profound and to reimagine the bounds of community, coalition, and presence. After attending a session by Alexa as a part of RestFest 2024, I couldn't stop wondering about the potential for shared time and sound as a monument, a way of creating a statement of power and presence and a new form of public of our own design, shaped according to our needs. What better way to explore this than to have them here with us tonight? Kindly note that while Alexa provides some context, Cleary and I will be inviting you to unmute if you would like to participate in the sound making portion Alexa will be leading. Please welcome Alexa Dexa.
Hi, Alexa Dexa here, and I'm so overjoyed to be here with everyone. I hope you're comfy and cozy. My skin is white with light olive tones. My brown hair reaches down to my knees currently. It's in a little like half bun on the top of my head with a bow, and my deep brown eyes squinch up with a push of my plush cheeks when I'm smiling. When I laugh, the echoes really reverberate. The virtual background that I've made features hand-drawn pink candles with flames that slowly flicker from side to side in front of like a purpley pink cosmic glitter. And I'm really thrilled to invite you to join me in crafting and casting a song spell together for our resonant bodies and crippicologies. So I define a song spell as a song that casts a spell as we listen to it and as we listen to ourselves and each other. Its magic blooms from truth, that what we give our attention to grows. So to cast our song spell, I invite you to connect to your curiosity and your sense of play, and to explore the sounds of your body and your crippicologies with me. This is an open invitation to approach our disabled experiences as a symphony unfolding with our mobility aids, our bedscapes, our companions, our environments, and our crip understandings of the world. This is also an invitation to really dismantle an ableist hierarchy of good and bad sounds, instead really valuing all sounds and sounding bodies as worthy, welcome, and valid. So if there are any resonant bodies that you want to collect to make sounds with, you can go ahead to get to gathering, whatever is joyful for you. And it can really be anything to make sounds with. I have like a tin of salve that I use. I have a tincture with me. I have some worry beads that my yaya gave me. I have my pill box with my pills for the week. And I have my little toy lap harp. So if there's anything that you want to make sounds with, this is a good time to collect. And then the other thing I want to say is that Zoom is very happy to suppress noises that don't sound like human voices. So if you're on the desktop version of Zoom and you can turn on original sound, that will just make it so that all of the sounds you want to make will come through for all of us. Okay, and I see a link is being added to the chat for how to do that. So the sounds that we're going to be making in Zoom are going to be routed to a patch that I've built in Maximus P. It's going to be live processing our live sounds and then routing them back into Zoom so that we can continue to engage with them. And yeah, so we'll be casting the song spell together in an ongoing collaboration for maybe the next 6 minutes or so. And I've just really am happy to invite you to join me now to cast this song spell for our resonant bodies and our cryptologies by making all the sounds your heart desires in a really gorgeous collaboration with all of us here in all of the lands and beings we live with. Thank you so much, everyone, for making sounds together.
Thank you so much, Alexa. It's just absolutely magical. Um, ugh, I love that moment where things that feel very ordinary suddenly feel special. Um, and then it carries out into the rest of your days where you're like, yes, that is the pillbox I made sounds with at the workshop. Um, and then they become precious instead of kind of frustrating or completely mundane. Just delightful. Um, okay, thank you so much to all of our panelists. And let's have some discussion. I know I'm especially struck by the theme of presence running through all three of your works. And Monument Lab defines monument as a statement of power and presence in public. Often I find public is the word I struggle with most here. But you all back into presence in such an important way. From Johanna's initial question of, where are the crypt bodies? You're each doing work meeting people where their bodies are, in virtual and physical space. And I was hoping that you could each share a little bit about um, what does that mean to you to meet crypt bodies where they are, um, and what has it been like to see yourself as someone who can affect that sense of change or gathering and really build presence as part of your practice.
This is Finnegan. I can respond to that with a couple thoughts. I think one thing that really shifted in my art practice was this moment that when I realized that I really wanted to center disabled audiences in my work. And that really came from the ways that I had learned so much from other disabled artists and writers and thinkers, and the ways that experiences kind of get mirrored or refracted or or disagreed with, and through that process of sharing things, and then just realizing that because so many of the ways that artwork is typically exhibited is so inaccessible, that thinking about the structure that kind of contains or holds the work was going to need to be part of my practice. And so that's when I really started thinking about the ways that the work like branches out into the space and systems and protocols around it.
Oh, absolutely. Feel free to jump in as you see fit. I was just going to say, I love that sense of like branching into the systems. Like I'm imagining you as like a dandelion growing into the cracks of the sidewalk, persevering, and it's doing my soul good.
This is Alexa Dexa speaking. I can say that I'm very interested in building the digital infrastructures so that folks can come together in online spaces and have really intimate, meaningful, connective interactions together, and for those to be able to really highlight like the beauty and the wisdom that each of us has to share, if only we're given really the time and space to share that, and letting those really be experiences that can create wonderful creative moments and really instill our personal agency in just being able to be together and create together. And I feel like it's especially important as so many physical in-person locations become or have become or always were and maybe continue to be and hopefully will be less and less in the future, so inaccessible. And so being able to shape a space that happens that, that doesn't put anyone at risk to be in that space, I think is so valuable and so important as like a gathering space, a community space. And so I'm really interested in helping to sort of shape those spaces.
Did you want to say something, Aubrey, or
No,
should I
I'm
speak?
excited. Please feel free.
Okay. Well, I wanted to, it was interesting when Finnegan was talking, I wanted to just say a little shout out. I'm staying in Sam Levine and Tiga Brain's house right now. So when you mentioned that piece, I was like, and two things came to mind. I mean, one thing in that piece that I was really thinking about was that taker and giver as words are a kind of binary opposite until you put the word care in front of them. That seems somewhat significant to me, that when you add care to the word taker and to the word giver, which would normally not be the same thing or equivalent, they become equivalent. I think maybe at this very moment, because of what America has just decided to do again, I'm thinking about, like, when Sick Women Theory came out, it was 2016. And in the years after, when I started to get invited to read my work at a poetry space, and then as that kind of scale grew, I got invited to make work in a group exhibition at a museum, and the theme was care, all of this sort of stuff around accessibility and exactly what it meant to engage with an institution that had money and power and resources much greater than me. All of these sorts of more urgent questions about what that meant in practice started to really land in my life. And I can say that it was years before even the word accessibility like if I would mention it in an email thread or a Zoom call with a curator or an organizer, I mean, they didn't even know what I was talking about for years. I mean, many years, and some of them still don't. I think the thing that's on my mind is what do we do about the public space and the accessibility of that space with people that we might not be friends with? I think that America might really need to think about that right now. Care is really easy to do if you actually care about somebody already. It's really easy to do if you think that, you know, if you're their friend, you're like, yes, of course. I just spent all afternoon today at an urgent care in Brooklyn Heights with somebody who needed to go there. And we had plans to do something else. And then they needed to go to urgent care. So that's where we were. I had no hesitation in saying I would go there. If a stranger on the street asked me to do that, I don't know if I would. If a stranger on the street who voted for Trump asked me to do that, I don't know if I would, right? So I think we actually need to think about these kinds of things when we talk about community and building spaces for people. Something that a dear friend of mine, and really, if anybody's interested in disability justice, they should read Leah Lakshmi Piepzna Samarasina immediately. Also, she is a resident of Philly. But she talks about care and mutual aid in terms that aren't built on shared belief systems, friendships, you know, communities that already have a kind of agreement to each other that they want to care for each other. It's like, well, what do we do? What's our obligation to do things like accessibility, support for the disabled, and CRIP communities with people that we might not already know or feel beholden to or want to be beholden to. So that's the thing that comes to mind for me.
That's such a really helpful point. The CRIP community is so intersectional, and thinking about the extent to which it impacts people across marginalized and otherwise unmarginalized populations, and impacts people's choices that they make on big and small levels, and especially how they see things like time and money, and the function of other people. And thinking about what public space means in light of that, I think is really such a challenge that you've helpfully raised. And I know, like, I need to go sit quietly and think about it for a while myself, but in that spirit, yeah, what does access and care look like when it's gotta come from a place that's not out of connection and love? Because there are huge parts of the CRIP community that are built on that kind of warm and fuzzy set of principles.
Well, I would just add, I mean, because when I've gotten into fights with, say, a cultural institution or a museum over why, for example, we need a bench in the exhibition for people to sit on, I'm not doing that because I'm being generous, but that's how it's often framed.
Mhm.
Is that I'm taking the time to do this out of my generosity. And I'm like, no, bitch, I need to sit down. Other people need to sit down. Like, I think the danger of what I'm trying to talk about is that there becomes a morality in terms of who deserves care and who doesn't. And it's based on if they're a good person or not. And I'm just interested in really, well, I'm not interested necessarily because I just wanted to be. I think I just have become over the years a bit more interrogating about what we mean when we're talking about access. Because, like, you know, to be quite honest, the conundrum is, do we have an obligation to care for people that we don't like,
Mhm.
you know, in a political scale?
I think that the idea of no, I need to sit down, like, is a really significant way to think about that. Is like, um, that on top of that, that we've got the breadth of types of disability and things that you can't anticipate for other people. And so much of what, at least like, I knew to start asking for when I was doing accessibility work was based on my own lived experience, and then the people I was interacting with lived experience, and then you grow out from there. Um, and I think that's to say it's it's really hard. And especially when you're interacting with like, I know Finnegan, at one point you and I had a conversation about what does it look like to like recenter the aesthetics of like ease, um, and to think about what's what's convenient and comfortable as an aesthetic. Um, and just thinking about your insistence on a bench and like, what does that mean to encounter institutional aesthetics that often want, it's more about the sightlines than it is about the bodies that are going to sit in the space. It's about the preservation of paper long term, not about like if somebody can stand to be in that very cold room with those works on paper. The bodies so often come second to what they consider to be the art practice. And I think you all are really raising this incredibly important idea that you can't separate the art practice from those measures of access, um, and that to do so is disingenuous, and is that it's not a generous act, that it's a necessary act, and that it's a completely different way of understanding um, how we interact with spaces. Sorry, I think I warned Alexa I would get really excited and just like ask you guys questions, because I'm a dork. We do have a question in the chat that I'd love to share from Mary. Mary says they'd love to know from Finnegan about the response they received from their work regarding the demonstration against the monstrosity in Hudson Yards. Um, Mary says it is a gruesome thing, and right near it is a ridiculously expensive mall of shops. That area is so exclusionary on many levels. Are there any future actions about that area and space?
Thank you for that question. I will say that, yeah, I had this idea that maybe the action would be like a blip on social media, maybe through like geotagging, but especially when the vessel opened, it was so successful on the terms that it set out to be, which was as a kind of like photographable icon of and shiny object, that there was really like no, like, I don't think our presence, yeah, was registered in any way by Related, the real estate company, or by Thomas Heatherwick. There was a like legal settlement around access, but like a lot of ADA stuff, it's a little bit unclear how enforceable that is. And yeah, well, I'll also say like the official ask of Anti-Stairs Club Lounge, or the vessel, was an anti-stairs club, a permanent anti-stairs club lounge with a $150 million production budget. And I think that for me was kind of this way that I was like, this thing is so structured around ableist ideology that there's no reforming it. It was right around the time that Park MacArthur had a show at MoMA, and there was this beautiful description in that show of a live work space for disabled artists. And I think that was also really on my mind as I was thinking about that space, of just like what we could have had with that kind of money, or what is, what would be possible. And yeah, all to say it, I think I don't have any current or any future actions planned around that area, though I like continue to share and talk about that project. And yeah, and I do. And also, oh, another thing that has kind of happened from that is that people could take their hats with them. And that's something that I've really loved about the project, because they have this crossed out stairs icon on them. And then anywhere that someone is, they can be having their kind of anti-stairs club lounge moment, whether they're in like the subway or inaccessible housing or, and every once in a while I'll get a text from a friend who's like, wore it during install to, you know, feel stronger as I was fighting against some standards or norms or things like that. So that's kind of where things stand stand now. But I do continue to like feel interested in that space, and like I still get the marketing emails for Hudson Yards because I'm just like so fascinated and like disgusted by what that space is and how it's functioning as part of New York. And so maybe there will be another project that comes out of it down the road.
We've also got a comment from Caroline Myra O'Donnell for Johanna that notes that, hello, they are an exuberant fan of your essay, Sick Woman Theory, and now your music and performance art. Thank you for sharing with us. Sick Woman Theory has been so helpful to them personally, and they share it with everyone they can. They say thank you again. That's a lovely, lovely thought.
Thank you.
I would love, I was really struck by the intimacy of sounds, both in Johanna's piece and in Alexa's sound making. And the stark contrast between the warmth and gentleness that both pieces could sometimes take in moments, and then like the kind of moments of sharpness. Um, and could you just each give us a little bit of a sense of um, what does it mean to you to think about um, the sort of, and I know Alexa, for you, this especially comes up pretty organically, that idea of the sort of score of your music and the things that you know you want to bring in, and the feelings that you want to elicit. What is that process like for you?
Hi, this is Alexa here. I'm really interested in not having control over what is happening and letting the things that are happening in our environments, with ourselves, with our body minds, and with each other, the same way that you would go about your daily routines and living your life in the world. And really just putting the context of that as like a musical composition, as something that's worthy of paying attention to and giving value to, instead of something to sort of bat away. And for me, that really gives a larger sense of connectivity, and also like a greater degree of joy for me in certain types of interactions that maybe otherwise wouldn't be joyful. Like, for example, for me, like an MRI machine, I really have a lot of like claustrophobia, and the idea of going in one does not bring me joy. But like on a recent imaging scan, I started humming with the machine and doing this really beautiful duet, and listening to the tones that would crop up between my tones and the tones of the machine. And I think there's something really beautiful about having those kinds of relationships with everyone and everything, and being able to sort of create a little space and a little context that says, like, really getting rid of, like, the white supremacist, you know, classical traditional music ideas of what can be considered an instrument, what can be considered music, what's value, what has, you know, what's worth listening to. I think there's so much more than that, and I really love exploring that and giving space for others to explore that as well.
And the question is like, sorry, can you say it? Because the question became more for Alexa Dex's very interesting way of working, which is cool. But
Yeah, I think in thinking about that show, especially for you and that architecture, and knowing so much of your audience was going to be digital and remote, um, there's like there's some moments of tenderness in that piece, it felt like, and there's some moments of like real frustration and um being in June of 2020, right? Um, can you just talk a little bit about what was your composition? What does your composition process look like for a piece like that? Um, and what was the experience of performing it? Because to speak about like generosity, that was a very generous performance. Like you could feel the soul in that. Um, what was it like to perform that in that space?
I'm still thinking about this cool idea of a duet with an MRI machine. That's really cool. Okay. Well, that song is from the record Black Moon Lilith and Pisces in the Fourth House, which is a full length kind of you start at the beginning and you end at a sort of cathartic ending of 6 songs that were really made over a period of a couple of years in response to my mother dying, and became a kind of grieving ritual. And that song is the second song on the record, and it's really a kind of it's meant to sort of hush after a really big doom metal 12-minute screeching kind of grieving dirge that opens the record. Um, I kind of love playing this one after the big confrontational beginning, because it is a bit, I mean, a friend of mine said that that song sounds like I'm a lone cowboy, like at midnight, like loping through the desert on a horse. And then the guitar solo comes in, it's like a kind of shooting star across the sky. I think one of the things, I mean, it's interesting that kind of, I think both Alexa and I have an interest in opera, but kind of in a subversive way, because I did train vocally as an opera singer for a little bit, not too long. But I'm much more interested in the Korean tradition of opera, which is called pansori, which is very similar in aesthetic and dramaturgy. And the idea when you go see a pansori show is it's like costumes and characters and act one and act two, and there's this kind of narrative happening. But the aesthetic of the sound is completely the opposite of the classical European opera tradition, which kind of arguably in the European tradition, the idea of an opera singer is that their voice is sort of untouched by time, untouched by the body. They kind of have this pure, crystalline, like they sound like angels. They don't sound like humans, you know, because the voice is in the back of the throat against the soft palate. It just sort of reverberates. It's this very clear sound. And in pansori, the opposite is true. You sing in the throat, the more grain, the more grit, the more kind of ravaged the vocal cords sound. Um, it's considered more beautiful. And the idea of like an opera diva in pansori is like they're old and they sound like frogs. Like they have this croaky, like rough voice, and they're like in their 70s and they're like ah, and like people are like gorgeous, it's so great. And the idea is because it's not really thought of like in the Western tradition of singing when you're learning and training the voice. People talk about like losing your soprano range as you age, if you smoke or if you can just lose it. Like Joni Mitchell, for example, lost her soprano range. In Pansori, it's not thought of as something you lose. It's thought of something you gain. Like what the body has gained by aging, by getting broken, by getting scarred. And, you know, that's just kind of an aesthetic that gets me really excited to think about. So whenever I do a live performance, I'm really pushing against this duality of singing, you know, classically in a European tradition and then pushing into a different kind of place in the body that you can kind of hear as well. Like I want the audience to be able to hear that shift. And I do want, you know, an audience can feel when a performer's body is on the line. They can hear that. And I always like try to get it there because I'm not seeing it as something that I'm going to lose or break or ruin, you know.
That I think is a wonderful note to end on in the spirit of kind of crip aesthetics. I know I have a lot to go back and think about personally in terms of scale and material forms and presence and navigating the incredibly tense and complex American atmosphere in the realm of care and access, and especially in the realm of public art. So big thank you to everyone who's tuned in, as well as to our wonderful guests, Johanna Hedva, Finnegan Shannon, and Alexa Dexa. I'd also like to thank Paul Farber, Yolanda Wisher, Cleary, Janai Gibson-Felix, Bella Rodriguez, Dina Paula Rodriguez, and the Monument Lab team for their support with this event, which is our first accessibility-focused event at Monument Lab. And to my little sister Keaton, who has championed this happening every step of the way. Special thanks to the Mellon Foundation for their support of this program, and in fact, our whole public workshop series. In the coming weeks, we'll be sharing clips from this event on social media, and be on the lookout for the event video on YouTube in a few weeks. I've also curated a playlist featuring disabled, chronically ill, deaf, hard of hearing, neurodivergent, mad, and crip artists inspired by themes of the event. And it's a pretty sick playlist, y'all. It was my car ride playlist right now. I'd like to close with the final refrain of Jazz Hop Band, Wheelchair Sport Camps, It's Hard Out Here for a Gimp. There's a stairway to heaven, so tell me how the hell we gonna get in. I'll be honest, I still don't know. We continue to exist in a world of systems that do not anticipate, and what's more, often openly reject us and ask a lot of us if we want to get anywhere. I'm confident, though, that even if we can't make a ramp or elevator, that we can find a place of our own together at the base of the stairs, somewhere grounded in the profound witnessing of and listening to each other, as we have had the opportunity to tonight with these three fantastic creative people. Imagining and embodying a broader understanding of publicness and what it means for monuments has been a pleasure and an absolute privilege, and frankly, a dream come true for me. You are individually and collectively magnificent as our presenters and our attendees. Please all be gentle with yourselves and with each other. I wish you rest and ease as you continue your evening. Thank you everyone for being here so much, and have a wonderful night.